We're going to work with some partner drills here. We're going to focus specifically on disarming. And from those basic disarms that we're going to choose, we're going to also expand in how we can translate espada y daga entanglements, or ways that we can trap our opponent, in more of a single stick and empty hand combination. So, we're going to go through this fairly quickly. I don't want this to be too much of the emphasis on the lesson. But the first disarm, he's going to give me an angle 1, or rather I'm going to force him to do an angle 1. I'm going to do what we call a transition block. That's the important part here. That's when I take my angle 1 and I strike through my partner's stick. I check it with my safety hand, and almost immediately I come back with the puño, and I'm going to now transition into what we call the elbow strike disarm. So when I transition, I'm bringing the puño, I'm pressing it towards the right, and I'm sliding my left hand down to grab the stick roughly at his slashing point, or where I would naturally hold a stick in my left hand. And once I create that tension, I'm going to roll my puño down into his wrist here. I want to kind of dig into the skin and force his knuckles to point up. And once that happens, I'm going to pull him into me, bend my right elbow, twist my body to the left, all at the same time, to strike the stick out of his hand. Okay, so once again, transition block, push and pull, dig it in, and twist an elbow. Okay, and one more time quickly from the other side here. Again, transition block, coming back, dig it in, pull, elbow strike. Alright, so disarm number 2, we're going to work off of a backhand strike. So we're going to go off of angle number 2. I'm striking him, forcing him to block with the angle 2. I'm going to do what's called an outside vine. So vining is wrapping around, constricting it with either my stick or my hand. In this case is going to be my safety hand. I need to make sure that I take a 45-degree step with my left foot. I want to almost beat this angle. I don't want to meet it with my stick and not my body, because when I try to reach for it, it's going to be too far. So, setting up the outside vine, I should be roughly close enough that I can comfortably put the back of my hand towards his. And once I get there, I'm going to start paring it down, and I'm going to make a circular motion, going clockwise, about halfway. I'm going to give a thrust to the stomach. Not that I want to hurt him or hit him. I just want to distract him so I can underhook and capture it into my elbow here. And once I get that, I'm going to slide back by stepping with my left foot backwards, pulling my partner towards me, and I overhook on top with my puño. And once I get there, it's a simple push and pull in this diagonal fashion. Where the stick is pointing, that's where my force is going. Not flat, not vertical, on a diagonal here. Okay? So, for me to be able to do this, which is the most important part to a vine disarm, the actual constriction, I need to distract everything here. Because he still has a safety hand, his eyes are still perfectly capable of seeing me, plus he's got 2 legs. And he's got good posture. So as I'm going for that, I almost time it where by the time I'm halfway, I'm already projecting that I'm going to thrust. And that's going to cause that distraction to allow me just to get here. And now if there's a rebuttal, I have the shoulder rotated, so now it's a lot easier for me to pull him. It's a lot easier for me to get this stick to almost evade the strikes by giving him a little bit more pressure on this side. So as the attention stays on my live stick here, that gives me a good amount of time to pull and then set up the disarm from there. One more time quickly from the other side. We go at angle 2, parrying that down, thrust, coming up, step back, overhook, push and pull. Alright, so for this part of the lesson, we're going to take the templates from the 2 disarms prior, and we're going to use that to help us plug in our espada y daga entanglement. Now, espada y daga normally is long and short blades, but in a more realistic and practical situation, most likely you'd have some sort of impact weapon, in this case a baton, and then of course your safety hand. But we could still apply it the same way, so not only we could take the template to work off of that first barrier, but also use it to bait out the second hand, and now we can get more of a control or a lockup to our opponent. So if we look at the first situation, we're going to look off of the transition block. So when I'm going for this particular technique, in my mind I'm thinking about going for the elbow disarm that we did earlier. So as I start that push and pull, by nature it creates an opening for his cross to come straight. Not by choice, but just because that's how I create the tension here. And once that happens, if he capitalizes and he decides to punch straight, I'm going to take my puño, I'm going to come from the outside, that's on the right side, his pinky side. I'm going to parry that down and press it into his own hand. And once I have that there, I'm going to take a stick, I'm going to wrap it on top, and I'm going to take my puño section, hook it on top like so. And that's going to cause his stick as a barrier to trap that left hand. Now my left hand is free. I can also switch it off to this hand here, hold that, and start striking him with my stick. Okay, so if we look at that from another angle, we have pressure here and we create an opening by nature. And it's very important when we parry it over. Don't just parry it over with the stick. Make sure you twist your body as if this was empty hand as well. So when I'm over here and I see that punch coming, I turn. Now I put the stick on top, hook it in, hold it, attack with my safety hand, transition, attack with now my live hand. Alright, so for the second setup, again, we were using the backhand or outside vine. That was off the angle too. So we work the same way. And I'm still going for that backhand vine, but if my thrust is not adequate, if it's not enough to get the pressure or the attention away from what I'm doing here, again, that cross is going to come my way. So I gotta put a little bit more emphasis on making sure that this vine happens much quicker. Because if he starts to do it now, both my hands are down here and that punch is coming straight to my face. So the timing that we're looking for is you want to catch it. And now I'm in a position where I don't have to worry about his hand. I don't have to worry about his safety hand now. So as the punch comes, it's very difficult for him to punch my face, but if it starts coming along, what I want to do is I want to go from the outside with that same safety hand. I'm going to parry it out to the left. I'm going to grab onto it, and now I'm going to take his hand, press it down to his other hand. And that creates almost like this trap, almost like a handcuff situation. Now in between his two arms, I have an opening to stick my stick through, and I'm going to use that to crank and set up a takedown here. Now it doesn't have to be a takedown, but I can use that to break his base, and then from there I decide how I want to go about it. Slipping this up into a submission, taking this out and striking, so on and so forth. So if we look at that again, we'll do it slowly. Starting off with angle 2, looking for the outside vine. A little bit more emphasis to get this done a little quicker. Punch comes. I'm going to parry that to the outside. Press it down into his own hand here. With my stick going in between his arms here. And I'm going to turn my body to the left to help accent that crank. So let's just run quickly through all the techniques we did today from start to finish. Working off of a transition block, I'm going to strike through, come back, and disarm. Working off of an angle 2, outside vine, thrust, come back, disarm here. Now adding in that espada y daga template, transition here, I come back here, punch comes, turn the body, on top, hook, transition, strike. And for the fourth one, working off the backhand here, I get that vine, parry that out, stick it through, and lock them up.